Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
And I'm Aaron.
We're going to take a look at the really unique deck building game, Eminent Domain.
As Tom said, this is really unique, and the uniqueness comes in the way that the cards are actually played. Typically in a deck builder, you just lay out your entire hand, you're like, okay, I'm going to use this to do attacking, and this to do buying, or whatever usually it's like attack or buy. Those are the kind of the two main things in a deck builder. Mm-hmm. And this, it feels more like a space opera where there's all this different stuff to do. You're going around space, you're surveying, finding planets and taking them into your own, what's the word I'm looking for?
But
under your influence, and they're your planets now, and then you can use them. So the way you play your cards though is at the beginning of your turn you have an option to play a card for an action. Every type of card has a different action, or you just don't play an action. And then you're mandatory. You take one card from this face-up deck out here. There's 5 face-up decks, and that is the action that you're taking. You're taking the role of that thing, and then everybody gets to follow and take a slightly lesser of that action, or they can dissent, and they get to draw a card instead, so that they can prepare for their turn. So it is really unique that you don't have to play a card at all for your turn. You're just okay, I'm just going, I'm not going to play any of these actions. And then my roll, I'm going to take this card. So I'm getting a card for free without purchasing it like a normal game and taking that action. The cards in your hands, hopefully you can use them to boost those. And that's where it really comes into play.
So there's no currency. There is and there isn't. Mm-hmm. But think about what he was saying when there's buy and attack. Normally cards have a cost. And there are some advanced cards that in a way have a cost, but definitely not in the same way that you're used to with deck building games. If you've played a lot of deck building games, Legendary, DC, Star Realm, Shards of Infinity, Tyrants of the Underdark, any of those games where you are, spending, there's a certain type of currency that will let you either purchase more cards into your deck or do something else. Now, you are still definitely getting cards into your deck, but you just choose whichever card you want to add to your deck. Mm-hmm. Like he said, they're just these stacks here, and normally in a deck building game, you're hoping to draw the right, mixture of this currency or that currency or these abilities that will trigger off of each other. Mm-hmm. And here you do have that same type of feeling of you want to just draw all of the same card.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. But if you were to draw all of the same card, and then you're okay, that's my role. I'm going to, let's say it was survey, I'm going to pick up a survey card. That plus all these survey cards in my hand, that's how great that survey action is going to be. Mm-hmm. And that is really clever and unique and really fun though, because it's so simple to just look at your hand and see right off the bat what your best option is.
Yeah. So there's the survey, which is how you actually survey to get new planets that you'll be bringing into your universe or whatever, and flipping them. There's the warfare, which is the military way of actually once you've got the planet, you're surveying it, it's in your area. But then so warfare, you can attack it. There's an attack cost, and then you flip it over. Now it's under your control, and now you get the victory points for it. Or the next of the roles is colonize. You can peacefully take over that planet. You just got to slowly put colonize cards under it until you meet its limit, and then take the colonize action. Once you have your planets under your control, you can produce on them or trade from them, and that's like a combo card. You can choose either one of them. So produce, you'll get these little resources and put them into the resource icon sections that are on the card. And trading, you trade them in for victory points. And the last one is research, and that's where it actually kind of starts to feel like a real deck builder where you're purchasing cards, because with research cards you can buy the advanced cards, and you kind of need to have those a handful of research cards to actually make it worth it, because there's 3 cost, 5 cost, and there's 1 7 cost in each of the types. So that's a research cost, but also to be eligible to even buy from these decks, you have to have certain planet types.
The long and short of the game is survey to get a bunch of face-down planets in front of you. Turn them face up and make them yours by either warfare or colonizing. Mm-hmm. Then you can produce on those planets and trade those resources for points. That's a big way to get points. And or throughout that entire time, you can research to beef up the cards in your deck. Either get better versions of the cards, like there will be advanced survey and advanced warfare and stuff, or there's even better cards that just do cool things that you haven't seen yet, or there's also permanent cards that are just permanent abilities that stay out in front of you. So saying it like that, because we just read the rule book ourselves and tried to figure it out, but actually no, Rodney Smith did show us how to play through we watched his video, but I almost feel like when you sit down, if you were to explain that, being like, this is basically how you get points and how you get there, these are the steps, it seems pretty simple. It's just the method by which you do it is kind of foreign to you.
Yeah.
Only if you've played a lot of deck builders and you sit down thinking, oh, this is a deck builder, I know what deck builders are. No, you don't.
The loop in this one is definitely different. It's
right.
like, okay, you got to get this and then actually flip it over. Yeah, so there's it's a totally different.
It's just a different field and a different methods and stuff. But like you were saying, buying these advanced cards does feel the most like a deck builder, because the number of research cards or number of research symbols, that's kind of like the currency. Yeah, those little light bulbs.
Like, okay,
and then
I'm playing 3 of them.
And the planets thing, that's just like a precursor. Just like as long as you have 3 of this type of planet, you can buy anything in the deck.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 lets you purchase like the first couple ones that are like the cheap ones. If you have 2 of that same type planet, you can buy some better ones. And then for there's 1 super advanced card, which is usually a permanent card, which costs 7 research, which is really hard to pull off. Mm-hmm. But then again, if you've been playing your tableau right and you've got the right planets, a lot of these planets have icons printed in the top corner, which add to those boosts. Mm-hmm. So you could get a couple planets that are good at research, and then you can start researching better, because you're like, okay, I'm going to do the research roll, I'm going to add these 2 cards from my hand, and then these 3 planets in front of me also have research, so now I can research anything. So you definitely can get better things at the end of the game, just like most deck builders are. Like, you start out with the really crappy cards that you can only purchase small things, but eventually you can purchase the big things. But this is coming at a different angle. Like, you have like a tableau plus the cards from your hand, plus you're following people when they take actions on their turns.
So that is one thing to think about, that you can't, there's a lot of times like you're like, I'm going to do this, but if I do this, then he can follow, or he can do something else. Well, you never worried about somebody dissenting. That's almost like a consolation prize. But one thing that I do think is really cool is the way the progression works even in your own deck. The more you take an action, the more cards of, like, I'm going to take the warfare action. Every time I do that, I add another warfare card to my deck. So now warfare, I'm better at warfare, or I have a higher probability of drawing warfare cards every time I want to go take that action. However, that's not always necessarily what you want, because you want to survey a bunch so you can have a bunch of planets in front of you, sure. But you don't want to keep surveying over and over and over again, because eventually you have to make them yours. You have to warfare them or colonize them. And then after you're done with that and you have a lot of planets, you might be like, okay, I'm done getting more planets. I just want to produce and get points off of them. Yep. So it's this weird ebb and flow of like, I want to get better at this, but not so good that that's all I do.
So if you do get caught up with like a bunch of cards of the same type, the one card that is in the deck that you can use to like help get rid of that is the research action. Like, if you play it as an action at the beginning of your turn, you can remove 2 cards from your hand from the game. So that research card has like 2 really good abilities that really only come into play like later in the game. Like, you can't really research in the first like couple rounds. Like, you don't have a planet flipped over, and you only start out with 2 research cards, which is enough, but you have to have them both in your hand and then take the research action. And then, it's also good for deleting cards later in the game. So it's like, it's more of a late game thing.
One thing that we only kind of touched on, I think, is the difference between an action and a roll. Mm-hmm. And that kind of really does increase the variety. Like, again, the survey, the action is to draw 2 cards, but then the roll is to dig through the planet deck to get some planets for you to get colonize and get points on and stuff. Mm-hmm. So that is really interesting. You're looking at these cards, you may be, I have 5 of this one card. I want to use one of them as an action, but then I'll only have 4 of that card remaining, so I wouldn't be able to use it for the roll thing. So that even that increases to the variety of this game. There's really just a lot. I want to say that there's a lot going on, but really there's not. I think it's just because my perception of deck building games is so prevalent in my mind that when I sit down to one that really throws a wrench in it and destroys convention, that I'm just so blown away by it. You know?
Yeah, it's not like super heavy. There's not like a ton, but it is like just you have to come at it a completely different way of thinking for like, okay, I'm not just gonna play out my entire hand and get the cards I want. I have to kind of like take it step by step and strategize completely differently. Like I really like it. Like it definitely deck builders are always a game type that I enjoy, and this is no exception. Like I love the following action in here. Like okay, well Tom's like, I'm gonna take warfare. I'm like, do I want to warfare as well? Yeah, I could use a couple ships. Or I'm like, no, just I'd rather have one more card, be prepared for my next turn. Having all those choices and getting to take extra actions, like, just ramps it up even better and higher in the grand scheme of deck builder games.
Very well said. So we both really love this game. It's very unique, very clever. I can't wait to see what all the expansions add to it to mix it up. And hey, if anything that we were talking about in this video sounds interesting to you, we're going to put a purchase link to this game in the description box down below. Go ahead and get yourself a copy.
While you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.